Alright, this entire episode, I guess you could call it, is going to be all about this new camera I just got. My daily carry, I'll show you here, my everyday camera. Nikon D3S with a 24-85. I'm going to do a whole different video on that at some point. Honestly, I love it so much. To this day, it's just such a phenomenal camera that I kind of never want to get rid of, that I don't feel okay doing a quick half-ass, like, these are the reasons why I like the camera video. I need to wait until I can do something special with that thing. But this video is going to be about this camera, my mystery camera, brand new one. I've wanted it for 5 years, kept talking myself out of getting it, finally just pulled the trigger and bought it, and I'm loving it. So everything you see in this video is going to basically be shot on this. I'm going to head to the traditional market, though I think because of the time of year, like the praying, because of Ghost Month, there's not going to be a whole lot of stands open, so it's a little more dead than usual. And then after that, I need to actually go all the way down to Tainan, which is about 2 hours south, so I can pick up this new piece of equipment for my home gym. But from this point on, everything you see, video and photos, are going to be from the mystery camera. Walking and talking test. We are leaving the market now. I'm going to, I don't know, I guess I'm just testing the video functions to see how well the autofocus, the exposure adjustments, and the built-in mic work on this camera. Alright, I just picked up that piece of gym equipment, the Bowflex that I bought from Tainan. The guy I met, the guy I bought it off of, his name is Ryan, and I probably ended up hanging out for like an hour or more just talking about everything. We talked about car culture, we talked about pop culture, just like, you know, various pop culture references from our era. We talked a lot about movies, TV shows. We both really dig a lot of the same, you know, actors, directors, types of movies, things like that. But man, those were really positive interactions, really positive conversations. I'm a big believer of quality over quantity, and I don't have a lot of friends. I don't have a lot of people I see eye to eye with. But when I find someone I click with, it's a special thing, and I really appreciate it. So that was cool. Really good experience there. Now this should be a good test to see how this camera handles video in low light. Is it jumping around trying to find focus like crazy? Is it cranking the ISO through the roof trying to brighten it? I don't know. We will see. I had planned on taking you outside this morning and doing a little sunrise photo and video, you know, because sometimes people like seeing that kind of stuff with camera reviews or whatever this video turns out to be. But it's almost immediately starting to get gray and dark because it's typhoon season, so none of that today. So far I am very impressed, very pleased, very happy with the photo quality. I do notice that it overexposes shots a lot, not to the point where it's blowing highlights. It preserves them pretty well, but the straight out of camera photos look much brighter than I'm used to out of my Nikon D3S. So whereas my Nikon D3S actually underexposes shots quite a bit and biases towards the shadows, and I have to shoot at usually 1 1/3 stop overexposed. Don't know how it looks yet, we'll see. Right now I'm testing a few different things. I'm testing not only the image quality, but I'm also testing the focus acquisition. Right now it's just in full auto. I'm not touching the screen. I'm not doing anything to control the focus or the exposure. I've just hit record and now I'm walking around. So we'll see how the exposure transition from bright to dark is. We'll also see how the focus is. I guess we're going to hear how good the built-in mic is. I'm going to keep testing these two things. I've been putting this camera against this camera. Matter of fact, I'll take a photo right now. We'll see how it goes. Got a little bit of rain. I'm trying to tell you, it's typhoon season. It's been like this every single day. Did you see Mama?
Yeah.
I've switched back over to my initial camera, which is my phone that I usually use for YouTube, so that I can put the new camera back in front of the camera. I can show it to you. Basically, to touch a little bit more, I wanted to go through and do a more in-depth video, but honestly, it occurred to me that once you've seen a few video samples and a few photo samples, you kind of get the idea. So I'm just going to talk about it. Basically, as I said at the start of this video, this is my everyday carry. Nikon D3S, and it's got a 24-85. Whole separate video on this in the future, maybe. But basically, you've got the size of this, and then you take it away, and you've got this little thing. And this is a Sony RX100. Now, this used to work, and it suddenly had the very common, very typical lens malfunction, and I took it apart and actually got it to rework, but oddly enough I could only get it to function when it was in pieces. Some magic thing happened where once I put it back together, it stopped working again. So it means it was probably like a short somewhere. You know, once a screw goes in or once two things make contact somewhere, it created a short which caused the malfunction, but I never really tracked it down. It ended up going on a shelf somewhere. But it's good for size comparison. We have the Sony RX100, and then we have this camera I've been talking about, which next to each other you can see there's not a huge size difference. However, this camera, the one I've been talking about, I've been shooting photos and videos with, this is a Samsung camera, actually. This is a Samsung EX2F, and what you'll notice if you try to do any research on it is that it's very hard to come across any good information. Most of the time you just come across old sales brochures. It's very difficult to come across any like good reviews. Basically what happened was, as we all know, Samsung got into the camera business. They actually made really good cameras, but nobody cared because it's Samsung, so then they stopped making cameras. And this camera was kind of a victim of that process. It was a really amazing, innovative, fantastic camera that nobody knew about because it's Samsung. And the very few reviews you'll ever find on it, you can tell that the reviewers were following the typical trend of, if it does what's popular right now, then it's a good camera. But if it has any features that are new or unusual or we don't understand or we don't see the use for, then it's a bad camera. And therefore, it actually got not very good marks on a lot of these reviews. But just to list through just a few of the quick benefits. Now, for reference, I actually tried to make this video before where I went in depth with all of the great things about this camera. And just by listing through its benefits, like down to minute details, the video is 38 minutes long, so I'm not going to do that. What I will do is I'll list a few of the highlights. For one, it's got a magnesium body. Magnesium alloy, just like my D3S over here. This thing is incredibly well built, incredibly rugged. It is a tough, serious camera. Even, I don't think I can get close enough to this camera to really show you, but it even has that like hammered finish, if you can see the light reflecting off of it. I've got tape all over it to like cover any white lettering or logos because that's how I like to do it. I've even put this little tab on there, Casey Neistat style, to flip this screen faster. But it's got a pop-up flash that is surprisingly powerful. Obviously not as powerful as a big flash, but more powerful than most. It's also got a very good lip on the grip. It's very easy to hang on to. These strap lugs, just like the Leica T, are fully rotating strap lugs. They're the pin style, very small, very discreet. They don't get in the way, and they actually rotate 160 degrees, so they never bind or catch the strap. It's got dual wheels up here. It's got your zoom here because it's got a built-in zoom lens like the RX100, and it's also got a control wheel here, just like the front of a DSLR would have. Only one flap on this side, and that's to access like the HDMI and charging. It has external battery charger, and it also does in-camera charging, which was this new feature that people didn't appreciate when it came out, but now everyone loves and raves about. It's also got a fully articulating AMOLED screen, which again was unheard of at the time, and I think nobody really appreciated it because this, again, RX100 from around the same era, it's not an AMOLED screen, it's LCD, and it's not fully articulating. It doesn't even tilt, it's just flat. So this thing was way ahead of its time. AMOLED, made by Samsung, fully articulating, very nice screen. It's also got a hot shoe, and I mean a proper like hot shoe, like a real camera would have. Again, to compare to the RX100, which has no hot shoe at all. This one has good German optics. This is made by Schneider, and it's a real Schneider lens. It's got a 24mm equivalent at the wide end, and the fastest aperture is f1.4. It's also got an insanely close focusing distance of just 1 centimeter, so you can get like right up against something. And it will still lock focus, which isn't a joke. I think you probably noticed that in a few of the sample photos I showed. It's also got a built-in ND filter, and it's not a simulated one. It's an actual ND filter inside the body that slides behind the lens. So I think it's good for 2 stops. So built-in ND filter. It's got a fastest shutter speed, mechanical shutter speed of 1/4000th of a second. It's got Wi-Fi built in, and actually, when Samsung got this camera, when they made this camera, they referred to it as a smart camera because it's not just like modern Wi-Fi and cameras that if you're lucky enough to have it, it's basically a one-trick pony that doesn't work that well. This was full-featured Wi-Fi. I'll actually turn it on and I'll show you here. But basically, you got your screens on. If you turn the control wheel to the dedicated Wi-Fi function, right there, where it says Wi-Fi, now you see it's got apps. So you can actually decide what you want to do. It's a full-featured, like smart system, like you would have on a phone. So if I decide I want to go to, let's say, social media sharing, I'll go over to social sharing, click on that, and it lets me know, like, oh, do you want to go to Facebook, YouTube, whatever. This is actual full-featured, legit Wi-Fi. So not only can you do your photo editing in camera, it actually has video editing in camera. like trimming, putting clips together, picture in picture, like it's got legitimate like basic video editing in camera. So you can record and edit videos in camera, switch it over to the Wi-Fi function, and then upload it directly to YouTube, all from this camera. Or pictures to Facebook, whatever. Honestly, there are so many features of this that by trying to go through them quickly, I've forgotten way too many. And if I try to list them all, it ends up taking 38 minutes. But between the 24mm wide end, f1.4 maximum aperture, 1 centimeter close focus distance, a full featured like smart Wi-Fi system like a phone would have with direct social media sharing, magnesium alloy body, fully articulating AMOLED screen, which means I have the option of actually, the reason why I like fully articulating screens means I can close the screen itself and not have it exposed. Built-in ND filter. Everything about this camera is very professional and very awesome. As a matter of fact, people complained that this sensor was small, but it's a Samsung sensor. We all know they make really good sensors, and it's BSI. That was another thing that was a total like new thing that nobody was doing at the time and nobody really understood or appreciated, is this is a BSI sensor. Just like now all of the big boys and their professional cameras are switching over to, this already had it. So even though the sensor is smaller, like this has a 1-inch sensor, I think this is closer to 2/3 of an inch. So this is a bit smaller than this sensor, but it's also BSI, and I think it's got better algorithms and better software supporting it than this one does, because when I look at the photo quality coming out of typical 1-inch sensor cameras, like I have this RX100, I also had a Nikon one, it was like the J1 I believe. I've had the G7X, I've had a lot of cameras with 1-inch sensors, and I can tell you that this actually performs better than most of those 1-inch sensor cameras. Now I can't speak on how it compares against the Sony RX100 Mark VII, but don't let the sensor size fool you. This thing performs phenomenally well, especially if you want to take the time to work your post-processing magic, because it shoots raw, and what people can do these days with between like Lightroom, Photoshop, and all these other crazy apps, just with the raw photos from a phone is insane. So having something like this, you can really make magic happen. Even something as simple as the batteries. The batteries they use in this camera are not some proprietary rare battery that's expensive and hard to find. These things are the same batteries they used in basically everything for a long time. So you can buy these batteries anywhere, and they're incredibly cheap. I bought two brand new batteries for this thing for like $10 total for both of them, and just, yeah, it's phenomenal, no problems. So anyway, you're gonna see me posting more stuff about this. This was like more of an introduction video. I have wanted this camera for 5 years. I kept talking myself out of getting it because I was basically convinced that although everything seemed awesome, that because it was a point and shoot that maybe it wouldn't be so good, and because of the small sensor size that I was going to be very disappointed. And the reality is that I'm now kicking myself in the ass because I'm loving this camera. Oh yeah, and image stabilization. That was another thing I didn't mention. It's got dual image stabilization, electronic and mechanical image stabilization. So this thing has so many features: image stabilization, BSI sensor, full featured Wi-Fi, built-in ND filter, f1.4, 24mm wide angle, like German optics, fully articulating AMOLED screen, magnesium body. Like, there's no reason why this shouldn't have been an absolute hit, like such a popular, legendary camera. But Samsung made it, so nobody knew about it, nobody fucking cared, which is unfortunate. The fact that you can now, fortunately, because it's older and forgotten, you can now buy these for less than $100. I paid more than usual for this one because it was local and I wanted to get my hands on it fast. So I paid $85 for this one. But when I search online, just the local marketplace, I typically find these things for closer to $70 or $75, and that's including all these accessories like, cases and little tripods, all the basic accessories you see for $75. So this camera at any price, I think, would be competitive with anything and work and be awesome. And would be a great street photography camera, a great little YouTube camera. This is just a camera that people should have known about. And now, today, the fact that you can buy it for less than $100, there's no reason to not snatch these things up and own a bunch of them, honestly. I'm probably going to buy several more just so that if this one ever breaks, I'll have a backup. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Please, if you're lucky enough to come across one of these cameras, because they're actually kind of hard to find, snag it up. Anybody who has ever owned this camera seems to love it. Unfortunately, not many people have owned it. So, until next time, thanks for watching.